Hi, guys.
There we go.
Hello.
We'll just kick it off right here. Hey, Heidi Ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions podcast, episode 470. This is the consensus first round mock draft with audio fixed and running perfectly. Now, this is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, Chris, and with me is two of the ultimate draft minds, Russ Brown, who's currently running Lions Wire while Jeff Risden is hidden in a box somewhere, kidnapped by his family, and Scott Bischoff, one of our wonderful and talented draft and otherwise other contributors throughout the season, off season, and everything else. Gentlemen, great to have you both here. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Go ahead, Russ.
I'm doing really well. Yeah, no, I'm good. I wouldn't say I'm running Lions Wire. Jeff's still been doing a lot of the work. But no, it's all is good.
Let's be honest, Russ. Riz never did any of the work. I mean, he's claimed it. He's not here. He can't defend himself. We can say whatever we want. Scott, I know what you were saying before the show, but nothing about Riz.
I had a lot to get off my chest. I really did.
He said he's
not good. I'm happy. I'm happy to be working with Russ again. We did a little. We had a little fun last year at Woodward Sports, and so we're here. So I'm happy to be here.
So the audio issue in the beginning, apologies everybody. Yes, blame Jeff. That's always the plan. We got a lot to talk about today. It's a big show. We got 32 teams to get through. We're going to walk through the first round of the 2023 NFL draft. We're going to explain who we think is picked, why, by whom, all that stuff, and a whole lot more. Scott, Russ, are you guys ready to go?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
All right. Finding our groove. I feel like I got a little discombobulated early with the old the audio thing, and I apologize. Everything worked great until we went live. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who subscribes and likes and does all that stuff. We want to start out with that because that's a big part of helping the show do the things that the show does. If you're here now, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and join us. Let other people find out about what we're doing here for you. Also, I have to mention draft night, opening night, round 1, night 2 with rounds 2 and 3. We will have our 8th annual draft party. 8 years of virtual draft parties going on. I can't believe years have flown by. I only look younger than I ever have and more spry, but hey, it's 8 years of silliness. We'll keep it going. So join us for that. Make sure to do that. Draft night live. We'll watch the picks with you, and we'll have guests and other things going on as we comment and walk through the draft with everybody. With that, here we go. You see the scroll on the bottom. That's what they're called. We have a scroll, and as we make our picks today, we will add those picks to the scroll, and you can see who's made the picks along the way. We have our first. This is our first of the year consensus mock draft. Russ and Scott are going to work their way through who they think each team is going to pick along the way. There may be some fisticuffs. There may be some arguments. There may be some disagreements. That's okay. I'm here to hold the hand high of the man who beats the other ones. It's because I don't want to be the next victim. So no, we're going to go through it and we'll walk through whys and hows on the teams. And we'll walk through what we think a no trade draft scenario looks like. We're going to do a couple of these mock drafts this year. We're going to help you all think of different ways to look at this draft, what could potentially happen, what the teams may think and do along the way. And I think these are good thought exercises for people. I don't know that these are things to get angry about. I've seen some people get irrationally angry about mock drafts. Russ, have you seen such behavior?
Oh man, never in my life. No, it's crazy how much people overreact if you do a trade. If you give them a certain player, it's just like, man, it's not even a real thing. Like, this isn't the actual outcome. I'm just giving you my opinion. And I took a trade on a simulator. It's not even real. Like, I didn't actually give away those picks. It's not happening, I promise. But maybe. I don't know. I love it.
So, Scott, why do you have a shadow account that you use to harass Russ every time he does a mock draft?
I was told that's what all the cool kids did, and I'm just trying to fit in.
He doesn't have a shadow account. He can't even run his own.
I don't even listen. I can't manage my first account. I don't even know what a shadow account is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's get to it. Always the first pick is, I want to say always, but it always seems like it's the easiest of the bunch. Russ, I'm gonna hand the torch to you. We are on the clock with the Carolina Panthers. They have the first overall pick. Where do you think they're going? Is it as obvious as most people think?
What I think and what I would do.
Let's do what you think the Carolina Panthers will do. We'll try to put ourselves in the positions of the various GMs.
Well, then Scott should have no surprise here. We were talking about it yesterday, and I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson. I really do. The quarterback out of Florida. And I could be wrong. I mean, we're still a couple weeks away. Obviously, we'll know more probably in the next 2 weeks. But when you move that much capital, you go from 9 to 1, you're swinging for the fences. And I said this to Scott. If you look back at years past, Josh Allen was the most raw quarterback I remember scouting. And the fact that the Bills traded up to 7 to get him just goes to show what they thought of him as a player. And they swung for the fences. They trusted their coaching staff. Same thing with Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. Imagine what those organizations would be like had they have not taken those guys. The Carolina Panthers, sure, they could take Bryce Young, but do we know Bryce Young's going to withstand the contact in the NFL? I mean, CJ Stroud, very accurate. I love both players. They're both, 1A and 1B on my board for the quarterback spot. But you're swinging for Super Bowls. You're swinging for the home run. And you don't want to be that team that misses out on it. And I just think with Anthony Richardson, he's a lot further along as a prospect than people think. And you throw in the athleticism, the cannon arm. I don't know how you don't take him just simply because of the potential there. And I think with Frank Reich, it's a beautiful thing.
All right, Scott, Anthony Richardson. This, I think, for a lot of people is going to be a controversial pick at number 1 overall. Where's your head at?
I mean, personally, I agree with everything Russ said, and the reasons why Carolina should take him, just on the upside alone. I mean, if you're Carolina and you take one of the other guys and they become a good starting quarterback in the NFL, it's not enough. It's just not enough. For if you get a middle of the road starter, which it's harder to do than people think. I mean, it just is. But if you find yourself with a middle of the road starter, after giving up all that capital, it won't be enough to get them over the top. That said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Bryce Young is the pick, just because I just think that he is. If you take everything into account, with the exception of the size, he is clearly the most polished quarterback of all of these guys. And he's going to play at a pretty high floor. So the only hurdle there is the size. So, I mean, he doesn't play small. He hasn't really been banged up at Alabama. So, I mean, this is the one year where it's like, I could see multiple ways that this goes. I don't think CJ Stroud is the guy at 1. So to me, it's between Richardson and Young. So that means anybody who's betting should go place a wager on Stroud going first right now because of what I just said.
The conversation.
No, I mean, I think if you're swinging for the fences, it's Richardson. If you want to draft a player who's going to start for you early and play at a high level for you, I think that's Young. I could see that being the debate inside that room.
It's really debate of high floor versus high ceiling. And I think that's where what you're chasing here. And you have to sort of put yourself in the mind of the Carolina Panthers, and are they willing to bet, and are they in a position as a front office to bet on the high ceiling, or do they need to bet on the high floor? And that's where I think what really informs their decision, which is why I'm here just as the roast master. But I'm on CJ Stroud first, so we've actually but my vote doesn't count. But that's kind of where I think he's the guy that is probably the safest pick. I guess you could make that Bryce Young argument as well in that he has.
No, Chris,
the high
I think
floor,
you're right.
I
do think he is the safest pick. I do think Stroud is. I really do. So because he's got the size you want. He's probably Russ, I don't know what you think, but I think he's the most naturally accurate passer in the draft.
Yes.
Throwing with anticipation, all those things. There's gonna, we could talk about this for a long time and not come to a conclusion. So let's, you know what I mean? Like, let's pencil something in and
yeah.
Go ahead.
And one thing I'll add is, and the only reason why, and this isn't the only reason, but one of the reasons to add to the Richardson thought isn't just the stuff on the field. It's the way that they've structured some of the contracts within that organization, bringing in Andy Dalton on a 2-year deal. If you were so sure on Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, you can bring in a backup. I get that. But why are you doing it on a 2-year deal? You look at what the Chicago Bears did when they brought in Justin Fields. They brought in Andy Dalton. They didn't have much to play with offensively. This team has Miles Sanders. They have Terrace Marshall. They could add a wide receiver at pick 38. Andy Dalton's there. He could buy Richardson time as a rookie. That's the reason why, that's part of the reason why I think that way. I'm fine with Bryce Young. I'm perfectly fine with making that the pick, locking it in, because I think that could very well be the pick as well, because to everything Scott said, he's one of the guys that can play right away. He's going to be a high impact guy. He should be right away, regardless of the weapons that are around him. So I'm fine with Bryce Young.
All right. We'll go there. And I will admittedly say that I am one of those guys with the people who've really watched Florida all year and said, son goes to Florida, of course. So we're like all tuned in. It's the Florida people that dislike Anthony Richardson the most for some reason.
Yeah.
And the other thing that kind of gets to me, and you want to say, well, those are the people that watched him, but there's all kinds of other reasons that could go to. But the other thing is with a completion percentage of 53%, he would have the lowest completion percentage of a first round quarterback, I believe, in the history of the NFL. And that means that's a big risk for somebody who grabs him as the guy. I hear a lot of talk, and with Richardson, my thinking is like, he's a guy you draft and sit for 2 years, but then you basically bring him in for a 2-year contract. And then you have to start making decisions, right? So it's a big investment. Anthony Richardson is a big investment, both in draft capital, but then in what you're going to have to pay him once you've spent the time developing him and getting him on the field.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say about the completion percentage stuff is that if you look at the list of really good NFL quarterbacks who were sub 60% passers in their first year starting in college, it's an eye-opening list. It includes Joe Burrow and Russ Wilson and Matt Stafford. I'm forgetting a whole bunch of them, but it's a who's who of quarterbacks. So, we have to remember that Richardson is a 1-year starter, and he is going to grow as a player, and it's almost unfair to compare him to an older quarterback because he just hasn't. He needs more reps. That's that's just kind of where it is.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to Houston. And not the Astros. The Texans are up. Risdon is sullying the Houston area as we speak with his presence, jinxing their pick. Scott, let's go to you first. Who do you think Houston looks for at the beginning of the second overall pick of the draft here?
Okay, so you would really think they'd be going quarterback. But they also have doing. Like, you have pick 12, right? So you're not forced and absolutely wedged into territory where you absolutely have to take one. Secondarily to that, is the Deshaun Watson saga was pretty rough. CJ Stroud has the same agent as Deshaun Watson does. It's David Mugoleta. Is that going to influence their decision making? Are they going to be leery of dealing with Mugoleta, if they draft Stroud? I don't know. But conventionally, you would think that might be a touch problematic. I don't know. If it's tough.
Just pull the trigger. Say it. Do it.
No, I could see Houston passing on quarterback and then trading up from 12 to take like Will Levis, coming back up to 6 or 7 and doing. I could see that being the play. more than them just sitting there and taking a quarterback. But for our purposes and for real, if we're trying to be realistic, you kind of have to take a quarterback. And at this point, I think you're taking CJ Stroud just because, you need some sense of quarterback play that maybe Richardson won't get to. And I'm as big a Richardson guy as there is, but this seems like a franchise that might not be willing to take on that kind of a risk given what they just incurred with Deshaun Watson. Whether there's anything to that, I don't know.
Russ, what do you think, man?
No, look, my first mock draft of the year was the day after the Super Bowl. It was with Cover One when I was there still, and before I made the switch to Fantasy Pros and Lions Wire, and I had them taking Will Anderson at 2. I had them going edge rusher at 2 because I think there's a realistic chance that that's what they do, and I thought that through this whole process because you have the draft capital to move up, and even in this scenario where we're not going to make the trades, I already know how our board's going to – I don't know because we haven't predetermined anything. This is organic conversation. But I already know that one of these quarterbacks is going to be there at 12. And even if they were able to move up, I mean, who's to say that they don't take 12 and dangle it for Lamar Jackson? I mean, who's to say they don't do that? I mean, there's a possibility that happens. And nobody's even talking about that. So I think with DeMeco Ryans, the way that this team's going to be built, it's a defensive guy. He's going to want a defensive player. You have an opportunity to get Will Anderson, even if you want to take Tyree Wilson. I mean, Tyree Wilson fits the mold of 49ers defensive ends that we've seen over the years. Eric Armstead, Forrest Buckner. We're talking about these long, big edge rushers. That's what he could fit for in Houston. So I think edge rusher is very much in play. And if that's what Scott wants to do, I'm for it. I'm with the same mindset, this agent with CJ Stroud, all that stuff. I think you can connect dots there. And I think it's one of those where, hey, our guy's Bryce Young. I mean, 2 weeks ago, everything I heard is they were circling for Bryce Young. If they don't get Bryce Young, they could very well change what they're going to do. So I think that's a logistic thing or a realistic chance. And I mean, it's starting to come out now. I mean, it's coming out into the media now that could actually happen. I think it's a realistic option here.
And part of it too is, and I know we got to move along, but like, I think there's been a conventional way that people think this first round is going to go. And I am not so sure that on draft night, people aren't going to think, wow, this is totally different than everybody had been, projecting for weeks. And it, like Russ is saying, it wouldn't surprise me if Houston was not in on this quarterback group and they took an edge rusher like Tyree Wilson or, I don't love Will Anderson like other people do, and it's a whole other conversation. But like, I could see them making that pick, an edge rusher. I could.
Look at last year. They didn't have DeMeco Ryans as the coach, but they still had the same front office in play. And we didn't think they were going to go Derek Stingley there at what was that, pick 3 or 4? And they ended up going Derek Stingley. We all thought offensive lineman. I mean, we all thought it was going to be offensive line, defensive line, and they ended up going with the corner. I mean, this could very well be the pick. And again, if you want to go Tyree Wilson, I'm for it. It makes sense. The buzz has been generating enough that he is probably the busiest player in the top 10 right now. He is going to meet with every single team in the top 10, and for good reason. And if the Houston Texans are meeting with them, I mean, why would they be doing that other than the fact that they might be taking him at 2?
To me, he's a good fit for a new head coach. The power defensive end who can do a lot of things. I know we've already blown this mock up, but we have to think, a little bit outside the box, because I don't know that it's going to be, as much as everybody wants to talk about 4 quarterbacks in the first 5 picks and all this stuff. I don't know.
It doesn't happen.
And this is a really strange draft from a talent perspective, right? Normally you say, oh, it doesn't happen because there's a clear, I'll just use him as an example. Calvin Johnson, big wide receiver. That's an absolute top 5 guy 100% of the time. You don't see that, right? Will Anderson, there's questions around him. Anthony Richardson, he is a high ceiling, low floor potential player, you really don't know what you have there. There's a whole lot of gambling at the top of this draft, which means that things could get crazy. And it really comes down to who's sitting in that GM seat and what's their taste for risk. I'm totally willing to go Tyree Wilson. If that's where you guys are, I just feel like if I'm sitting in the chair in Houston, I need my guy. I need my quarterback. And you're right. We could probably trade around and get it, but I feel like CJ Stroud is probably the most well-rounded guy that you can build your team around for a number of years and be in pretty good shape. I feel like from a risk perspective, Houston would want to be there, right? But I'm totally not. My vote again doesn't matter. I'm just talking.
But what if they let's say they like Will Levis, which sounds absolutely bananas, right? But you're not taking Will Levis at 2. But you might be coming up to say 7, 8, 9 range if Will Levis falls to that point. And, if you're Houston and you walk away with Tyree Wilson and you've traded up to get Will Levis, I think you've added some talent. And it's just a matter of, do they like the quarterbacks? Can they get over the Stroud agent thing? I know that sounds like nonsense for a lot of fans, but like it's a thing. Once an agent burns you, you're really not going to want to deal with that guy. He's shown you he's difficult, right? So, I think there's Chris. I think that Stroud is the most logical pick they could make, but it's the Texans. So, I do think they're trying to reset with defensive coach, and a lot of times when that happens, they you throw them a bone. And help them. And to me, that's Tyree Wilson in this draft.
All right. That's it. The experts have spoken. Tyree Wilson locked in. He is number 2 for the Texans. We move on. Arizona, number 3. Obviously, they are straight up in for a quarterback now. And CJ, I joke. This really blows up their phones, right? If Tyree Wilson goes second, then the world is on fire, because we knew that Arizona's phone lines are already going to be hot. But when you're now looking at Anthony Richardson available and CJ Stroud available, I think things are going to be going crazy in Arizona.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those, like, in a different situation where we're, for the sake of time, we're not doing trades. Obviously, we would probably be like, hey, this team's going to do this, and that. But for the sake of time, this is a layup. It's Will Anderson, edge out of Alabama. That's a defensive-minded coach there. You could make the case that he's, one of the better players in this draft. Is just overall tape and things like that. There's not as much risk as there are with some other players. You could say Jalen Carter, but with the off-the-field stuff, you pivot to Anderson here. You get an edge rusher. And when you look at what the free agency, the last 2 off seasons have been for them, they've lost Chandler Jones. They lost Zach Allen to the Broncos this year. J.J. Watt retired. They need help off the edge. You get Anderson. He could easily be a double-digit sack guy for them. So that for me, that's the layup.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yep. Okay. A huge argument out of Scott. We'll lock in Will Anderson.
Well, that's the thing. I don't want to argue it because it's too long. And I am not Anderson, to me, has some bust risk. I struggle with him as a prospect. It's a me thing. So we'll just leave it there.
Yeah, no, but the video you had with Darnell White, right? He just tanked him, right? I mean, it was.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, because Russ, I'm curious. Anderson looked like a different guy last year. Like, he looked slippery.
Correct.
He looked quicker. He looked like he could threaten the edge. He did not look that way this year at all. Stiff. I don't want to say heavy, but he looked like he was stiff. His move, it seemed like this year he played a lot of 4-eye, and his move was going back inside. I didn't see him threaten around the corner like you would want to see from a person being compared to like Von Miller kind of stuff. And that's where I am. It's confusing. He's one of those players that I just have a hard time. It is what it is. Moving on.
There you go. All right. We're now number 4 overall pick. Indianapolis is on the clock, and we have a pair of quarterbacks available. Indianapolis has a real need for quarterback. Are you guys telling me that they're going for kicker? Is this what we're after?
Yeah.
Jake Moody.
I think this is the place where Anthony Richardson goes. I think that you look at the new coach, coming from a background where they just developed a player like Jalen Hurts, and you've seen the benefit of running quarterback who can develop. This is a home run for Indy to get a player like Richardson.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I love the fit for him there. If he ends up falling to that spot, I think it's a great landing spot. They can figure out the veteran QB thing for a year, and they can figure all that out. And that said, I love the RPO style stuff that's going to be ran there. Same stuff that they ran in Philly with Jalen Hurts. I love that he gets Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman. We'll see what happens with Alec Pierce and Jelani Woods. And they've got enough draft capital. They can build around Anthony Richardson and really give him the best talent he's had on the football field through, the short term of his starting career as a quarterback. And he gets to do that in the NFL. So I love this fit. And, that's a home run.
There you go. All right. Anthony Richardson locked in as the man for Indianapolis. Then we have Seattle up at number 5 overall, and things get really interesting for them because the way this is played out right now, the draft has absolutely fallen in their lap.
Yep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think here at 5, if it were me, I've been saying this since the Senior Bowl and really before, I would be taking CJ Stroud if I'm sitting in this spot. I know you got Geno Smith, but that's essentially a 2-year deal. You can opt out of it after, the next 2 years if there's any type of regression. But you put CJ Stroud in that offense with Tyler Lockett, who, he's getting older. But you have Kenneth Walker. You've got your bookend tackles. They established that this past year, which is a rarity. You're able to find it, though, with Abe Lucas and Charles Cross. You have DK Metcalf. I love this fit. And I love the fact that you have pick 20, and there's a potential there where you could maybe add Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston. I doubt Jackson Smith and Jigba's there, but there's enough there. And if you need help at guard, you can grab Osiris Torrance. There's plenty to do. So I love the fit of CJ Stroud at 5. I think it's a great fit. And if you needed him to play this year, you can.
Yeah. All right, CJ Stroud, consensus for Seattle. You can make the case any further if you want, Scott. This is just for folks who are joining us a little bit late. Remember, this is a no trade scenario this time. We're just running the draft straight. We'll have a number of mock drafts with different rule sets and different things as we go on. But this is the everyone's locked in spot kind of move, and we'll go on. And it's not a bad approach. Right. The other approach that's the other extreme is we can trade anything for anybody. Right. And you see a lot of those as well. And everyone's like, oh, I traded back 3 times and now I have 47 picks this draft. Right. It's like, not realistic. So we're starting out here, and we will work the trades as we get forward in some of our other mock drafts from this point. But now we come to number 6, the Detroit Lions. And Scott, I know you got your finger clicking, ready to make the call. And tell Goodell who we're picking. Who do you want for the Detroit Lions at 6?
Well, the board hasn't fallen great for the Lions. It just hasn't. I think the Lions would be a Tyree Wilson team. They'd be all in on that. And I know that sounds a little bit out there because it almost is like loading up too much on the D line, but you can't have too many pass rushers. And I think he would do some really nice things as your closed defensive end, more physical. It would open up a lot of things on the opposite side for Hutchinson. But it hasn't fallen great. So, I think you're in a situation where it's kind of like Jalen Carter, and I think they're very much in on that still. I don't think that story is closed yet. Or it's defensive back, and just a personal thing. I think it's too early for Devin Witherspoon. I think it's a hard sell to draft a player as small as he is with his play style. Like, he is a heat-seeking missile, and I mean, it's fun to watch him play. He's a dog. He's a perfect fit for that locker room. they need to add talent to the secondary. I know they have a bunch of 1 year 1 year deals on players like Cam Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley and CJ Gardner Johnson, all that stuff, but you still need to add some talent there. It feels to me like it's too early for him there. And in this scenario, I think it's Jalen Carter, and that's just kind of where the need is. He really, as a penetrating player with the force and violence that he plays with, and the power that he plays with, could really complete the defensive line and make it really nasty. And that's just kind of where my head is. And I know that there's off the field with him, but to me, it's just, that's to me where I would be with this draft. The way this has fallen, if I can't trade out, I'd be taking Carter and I don't know what you think, Russ. I mean, I feel like I'm almost like selling out making that pick, but that's what I would do.
I think you're bringing up great points, and I would be a little, I don't know. I'm so torn on this because he's so talented of a player. I would just be a little surprised if he was the pick. I watched that presser at the owners' meetings of Dan Campbell like 3 times, and I wrote it up on the Lions Wire, and just seeing his reaction and knowing him just over these last 2 years, it doesn't feel like he's in on Jalen Carter because of the off the field stuff. He could be we see it on the field. He is a dog, but I don't think the Lions want to babysit. I don't think they want to have to worry about their guys off the field 24/7. And he's going to be that guy because this, the off the field stuff that happened in January, it wasn't the first time that it happened. It happened back in September. He got pulled over. He was going 89 in a 45. He got a ticket for that. He got a ticket for his tints on his windows from his driver's side to his to the dash, to the windshield. So he had a court case in October about that, and then it reoccurs here. And I'm just worried about that stuff. And I get it. They're kids. They're 21 years old. I completely understand it. But, you're old enough to make money for playing the game in the college level. You got to be old enough to make the right decisions. And that's the reality. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But at the same time, I get it. He makes so much sense for what they're trying to do. And the luck has kind of been that the best players in the draft have been falling into their lap the last 2 years. So I'm fine with it. I'm with you. I think corner's a little too soon with Witherspoon at 6. I would love Christian Gonzalez, but even then, I think it's a little bit too soon just because of Jalen Carter. And I agree with your points. So I'm gonna say Carter. I'll agree there.
So, and Chris, you've taught me this. You've told me this and explained this to me. And I think that there's so Chris, you explain what the Lions look for in football character, and and after I'm done, explain that if you can. But the thing that has happened is that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have shown us that if Jalen Carter can be trusted with football character, they're gonna figure that out. And if they're comfortable with him as a football player, they'll pick him. And if they're not comfortable with his football character, they won't. And we trust them to make that right decision. Chris, explain to everybody what football character means to the Lions, Dan Campbell, and Brad Holmes. I think it's a really important piece.
In a word, it's work, right? Do the work, put in the work. Whether you're a coach, a player, or anybody, work. If you're not going to do the work and you're not going to put in the work, they start to have a concern. I think, though, beyond that, and this is where, you can look at where he's at and say, no, we can excuse it. But here's something that I don't know if the Lions are willing to, a bite they're not willing to take. It's not necessarily of the things that he did, but if something happens now, you took the guy that did all those things, right? And whether you can defend him then, now you have to defend something different. And I don't think the Detroit Lions are a team that want to have to do that. Right, like if J-Mo gets in a racing situation, gets a ticket, whatever. Right now, okay, look, that's not his character. It's something different. That's you have a whole press release. You have a department that's ready to work the spin on that. But when you took the guy that already had that history, that's a lot of spin. That's a lot of work, and that's something I don't know really from Sheila's perspective and Dan, the rest of them too, they have that sense that character beyond football character is really important to this team. And I think you talk about character, it's tied to that kind of image. They are very image conscious about what they want, what their team is and who they have on that team. And to have to go to defense for a guy like Jalen Carter, I'm not really saying, oh, it's all these bad things, right? I saw the video and I posted it on Twitter and it had tons of interactions. It was crazy. I didn't make an assessment on it because you watch that video of him on the night of the accident. You could paint whatever story you want on Jalen Carter there. You could say, see, he did X, Y, Z, he's a bad guy. Or you could say, see, he did PDQ, and he's a pretty good guy. It's just a young kid making a mistake. Whatever you're painting your predilections, your thoughts on this guy, and everyone's seeing the same thing. I remember way back when I did my psych degree, there was something, I won't go into it, but there was a study about just this type of a situation. And it's really, this was just a replay of that whole thing in my head. I just don't think that beyond what the football stuff is, I don't think the Lions are comfortable being in a position if something happens, having to defend him, knowing what's already happened. That's really my take, but I'm here just to arbitrate, right? But when you guys have a disagreement, you're both on the Jalen Carter train, it seems like right now.
But just from a work standpoint, from a play standpoint, you don't do the things that he does unless you work at being a football player. You know what I mean? It's not, you just don't roll up on Saturdays and just blow up, SEC offensive linemen the way he does unless you're working at it. But it's what you're saying is probably more important than anything. And it's the end that they're going to have to get to. What is the off the field? And the beauty of the whole thing right now is I trust them to make the right choice. And to me, if they pass, it's because they just weren't comfortable with him as a person, as a player to bring into their organization right now. I'm good with it.
I think some team is going to get a great player in Jalen Carter, and they're probably going to get him at a little bit of a discount. And just, I don't want to say Lions luck, right? But to the despair, to the problem of every other team, he's going to turn into be a wonderful individual and all that. The thing that really kind of makes me pause is when you talk about the work side of it with Jalen Carter is pro day, right? Like you think about what happened, you say, okay, he's a good kid, and I'm not saying he's not, right? So please, folks, don't get worked up about this. I haven't portrayed him as a good or a bad kid or a problem or not, right? I'm just kind of looking at this very broadly. But after everything that happened, the one thing you have control over as a player is your pro day. You can't control what happened with the police or the press or what people are saying. The one thing you can do is go out there and show that you are grit, you work, you are football, and you are the player. He instead put on 9 pounds and couldn't complete drills.
Yep.
That now says, are you willing to roll on that as well? Because you're kind of connecting a couple dots in the trend. You have a trend line that's not heading up right now. I feel like that. I mean, look, if Tunsil in the gas mask is what he is, right? And he falls the way he does. I mean, I feel like Jalen does as well, or at least past the lines. It's my perspective. I think he's a great player. I think he has a lot to offer. So if you guys were to say we pick Jalen Carter as the Detroit Lions, I'm not going to argue it. I can see that happening as well. It's all the outside of football stuff that I think makes the team pause before making that choice. So
I mean, at this point, make an executive decision and tell us that Jalen Carter's off the board. Right? I mean, you can't.
Making me the bad guy. I can't. You're right. I can't.
Well, it's not being the bad guy. It's just being the realistic guy.
Yeah.
I think you have a reach inside to understand the inner workings of what's happening there better than, clearly what I have going on. So, I mean, if you're telling me that you think Jalen Carter is off their board for all the reasons you just laid out, which was pretty compelling, then I think that it's one of those things that I've just wasted 5 minutes of everybody's time making that pick. And maybe we need to rethink something.
It's not the first time, Scott. Don't worry about it.
It won't be the last.
I bust a shot. I will absolutely go with what you guys believe. I think that this does pull him off the board for the Lions. I could be wrong. I just don't see that in the soul and the character of the people making the picks. And again, it's not a judgment on what.
All right, we're going Devin Witherspoon. We just made a different pick. That's what we're doing.
Russ, did we do that?
Yeah, that's fine. That's the guy that I'm starting to believe is their guy. That's what I'm starting to feel. And I think it makes a lot of sense as everything that we talked about, football guy, grit, getting after it, a guy that put in the work. Witherspoon put in the work. He had a bad hamstring. He couldn't work out for like the last month. And I get it. I completely get it. You know, as far as it's a little early, I'm completely on board. And I have Christian Gonzalez is my top corner, but Dre Bly's out there catching passes with Witherspoon today, smiling and laughing like they're going to Easter Sunday together this weekend. And it's like, you know, I don't know. He just kind of feels like a Lions type of player for everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. I look, I'll be completely honest. I'm in love with Witherspoon. I love his game. I think he brings a lot to this team. I think he is the kind of guy. 6 is a little bit reachy, a little bit rich to grab him. I get it. But as goofy as this draft looks early, I think the value he's going to bring to the team is worth a 6th-round pick, especially compared to the other people sitting on the value board, if you will, at the various positions. So, all right, let's move on. Detroit Lions.
Sorry, everybody.
Detroit Lions take Devin Witherspoon. We move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think I know where I go, but where do you guys go?
This one's me, huh?
Yeah, go for it, brother.
Yeah.
What, man, this one's tough. Jalen Carter's staring me in the face. Will Levis is there. But, you know, I'm going to go with the guy that I could see wearing the black and silver, the Raiders colors, everything about it. I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez, the corner, Oregon. That would be the guy that if I were them, I would take him. They need help in their secondary. You got to try to limit guys like Justin Herbert, potentially Russell Wilson in Denver, and obviously Pat Mahomes in Kansas City. You got to try to stop those guys as much as you can to at least give your offense a chance. And I know they've got Jimmy Garoppolo, and they could very well go Will Levis here, but I think you want to have Garoppolo and boost some confidence around him, show, hey, you're our guy. We don't need to bring in a backup quarterback right away, even though I know they're doing their due diligence on the QB position. But Gonzalez is staring me in the face. I love the athleticism. I love the length at the catch point that he plays with. He's super aggressive there. I think with the oily hips, the fluidity, you throw it all in together, I think he can be a shutdown corner. And I think that's what the Raiders need. They haven't had that since Charles Woodson. So bring him in and hope for the best.
Scott. So with Gonzalez, I get the value, and I think he is a silly athlete. Like, it is just ridiculous to watch him run routes for receivers and pattern match and all those things. But where I struggle with him is with his physicality. Like, I look at the Georgia game and I see him responsible for 3 touchdowns that Georgia scores on them, and 2 of them are they're running plays, but it's still, he's the end man on the line of scrimmage, and he's just like, and it's, to me, it's just like, it's weird. And then there's a little bit of he'll give up plays. Like, he's in perfect position, 20 plus yards down the field. He's in ridiculous position, and he'll still give up catches where it's just like, we got to dial up the competitiveness. So
yeah,
that's kind of like, not that I'm disagreeing with your opinion or any of that stuff. I don't see him as aggressive as I want him to be, because he's in position so much because of how he moves. Yep. He moves like a rare guy. It's just, I want him to play more fiery.
Yep.
That's about it. Everything else, I totally agree with you. I think it's a good fit for where Vegas is. If they're not going to address their O-line, Gonzalez is a fine player.
Yep. And just a quick shout out. Yes, I know there's folks that are not in on Witherspoon at that position. There's no trades right now, and we're trying to find the best prospect on the board at that spot. And we kind of talked ourselves out of Jalen Carter, trying to put ourselves in the head of the.
We had a good conversation about things that they're likely doing.
Yeah.
This conversation they're having.
Yeah. I saw Kayvon Thibodeau
at this
come
exact
up.
moment.
Yeah. I saw Kayvon Thibodeau come up in the conversation. And there's an example from last year, guy who had less red flags, right, that they weren't interested in. Now, Hutch was definitely a much better player, I think, and we've seen that year on year. But at draft time, that was not as assured as they thought it was. All right, so no trades. We're looking at potentially Christian Gonzalez to the Raiders. Bish, are you in on that?
Yeah, it's fine. It's like I said, he moves unlike any other corner in this class. It's ridiculous the way he moves. Russ, you described him with oily hips. He could be an incredible dancer. He really could be. Maybe there's a future there. Yep. I mean, the running is in the family. He moves crazy. Can you get him a little more competitive? And if you can, great pick. It's a good position for him. I do think they need offensive line help, but are we in a place where it's a little early for this particular group of O linemen? And I think we're getting to a point where they're going to start to come off the board. It's fine. I mean, I agree with it. It's fine.
Yep. Okay, cool. We'll move on then. We go to Atlanta at number 8. Any quarterbacks on the board? What are we doing? Where are we at, Scott? What do you think for our friends down in Atlanta?
So I have them needing an edge player, a wide receiver, a cornerback, and a quarterback, right? And maybe like linebacker later. We've kind of exhausted the edge position. So I'm not sure there's one in this area where you would feel comfortable doing that. So I don't even want to say this out loud, what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. Is Jackson Smith-Njigba a player here? To me, he is a perfect complement to Drake London. I mean, like it couldn't be better. And you throw Jackson Smith-Njigba with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and it's find a quarterback and you're good to go. That's kind of where I am. Nope. And I know it's early.
No, I think it's a phenomenal pick. And I think it's one of those where in my mock 1.0 with Fantasy Pros, that's who I have Atlanta taking. I love what he provides in pre-shift motions, from orbit motions and jet motions. He can play in the slot. He can play inside, outside. As you mentioned, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. I love the fit there. And I think it would be, one of those guys that it's helping Desmond Ridder. That's what you have to do here in this draft. You have to put weapons around him to make sure he's the guy, because he seems like that's going to be the guy that they draft. So that's what I would do. Yep.
All right, locking it in. Jackson Smith-Njigba is our guy. Quick review. Again, a no-trade draft, so we're stuck picking where we pick, and we try to put ourselves in the heads of the GM, looking at the team's needs. Started out with Carolina taking Bryce Young, Houston taking Tyree Wilson, Arizona with Will Anderson Jr., Indianapolis took Anthony Richardson, Seattle took CJ Stroud, the Detroit Lions took Devin Witherspoon, Las Vegas took Christian Gonzalez, and Atlanta took Jackson Smith-Njigba. There we go. We're now on to a pick that this is one that's going to drive people nuts, I think. And I think it's going to drive me nuts, but it is the world we live in today, in the imaginary world that we're doing in our mock draft. We have Chicago picking at number 9, having traded with the Carolina Panthers before we started. Russ, where are you at, man? Number 9.
Well, I know the Bears have done a lot of research on the player, Jalen Carter. I know they've done a lot of homework on him. I'm really considering it here, and I think it could be the pick, but I'll be honest, I do think offensive line is very much in play here. And I think Paris Johnson from Ohio State, a familiar face with Justin Fields, you bring a guy like that in, 6'6", I mean, just super athletic, 35-inch arms. This guy can play left tackle for them. And Braxton Jones did fine, a great find for this organization. But if he's more of your right tackle, you bring in Paris Johnson, he can play on the left side. I think it's a phenomenal fit. And that would be the guy that I go with, just simply because of, the familiar face with Justin Fields. Send it in.
So
Sold. All right, there we are. Paris Johnson very quickly sold to the what do they call the Chicago Bears? That's their name. I hit the wrong button there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to produce and talk at the same time, and I'm not smart enough.
So
for
the next one's going to be super simple.
Yeah, well, this is crazy. Okay, well, I'll wait till we talk about it. Okay, Philadelphia Eagles at 10 overall. Go ahead, Scott.
So last year, the Philadelphia Eagles make a little mini trade up, and they come up and they get Jordan Davis, right?
Yep.
And Trayvon Walker goes 1 overall last year. But the best player on that defensive line last year was not Trayvon Walker, and it was not Jordan Davis. It was Jalen Carter. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are an older defense, but you took Jordan Davis last year. You add Jalen Carter to that defensive line. You already know what it looks like. Right. And it's a matter of, can you overcome everything that you described earlier? And you're now at a point where I think the risk is, if I was willing to do it at 6, I'm willing to do it at 10. I think to me, it's like they're running to the podium to make that pick. And that is a nightmare. That would be a nightmare for teams to deal with. And this is an older team kind of getting out of their winning window. And this might help them stay in that winning window a little longer.
Completely agree. I think that's the guy. If we could trade up, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a swap from 10 to 6. It really wouldn't surprise me by any means if he's there. And that's where the Lions move back to 10. They get, maybe pick 94 or something like that. And
31.
it's one of those, maybe they get pick 94, they get a second rounder next year or something like that. And they take the corner at 10, like Witherspoon, and Carter goes at 6 with Philly. And one thing just to add is just the two guys that kept Jalen Carter in line at Georgia were Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis. And both those guys are in Philadelphia. It's a home run. And they love defensive linemen. They love linemen. So I think it's just send it.
Yep. All right. We've got it. We have got Jalen Carter, who, mind you, right? And now this is us talking, so maybe we have a bias, but he's fallen to 10 overall, which is stunning compared to, before the combine, right? I mean, completely different.
Yeah, because honestly, pre-combine, I do think he was the best player in the draft.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not including quarterbacks in that conversation because the value is so inflated with that position. But best pure football player in the draft to me is Jalen Carter.
Yep.
And for a team like the Eagles to get him, it just makes me a little pissed.
Yeah.
And I know it's not happening, but I'm still pissed about it.
That's completely fair. But then again, though, Jalen Carter isn't going to win the Super Bowl for the Eagles. No one of these players is going to win. They're all starters. They're all going to make all these teams better, or most of them are going to make these teams better. But it's one pick, and you're talking about levels of difference on each one. So I think there's a lot of other things that teams weigh. So we'll move on. All right, Tennessee at 11. There's a quarterback on the board. God, if I'm Tennessee, I'm not trotting Malik Willis out there. Scott, where are you at for Tennessee, brother?
Is it my pick?
Is it? Oh, it's Russ. Sorry, I
can do it. But
I don't want to take away the glory from Russ. This is Russ's glory right here.
I know. I don't. I feel bad. Russ, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I could definitely see Will Levis here. I could see the Titans moving up potentially all the way up to 3 to potentially make it happen. And I think, I'm torn between two guys, Will Levis or Peter Skoronski. And I could make a case for both guys. Skoronski kind of, I think, fits what they look for in offensive linemen, right? You're talking about, versatility. Sure, he's got shorter arms, but I think he can still play tackle. 32 and a quarter is not ideal, but they did lose Nate Davis at guard this past year. They obviously lost Taylor Lewan. They let him go. So I think there's a need there on the offensive line. And I would certainly make Skoronski the pick if I were them, just simply because I still like Malik Willis. I'd give him a shot, but it's not about that. So that said, I'm going to say Will Levis, just simply for the sake that, hey, they've got to go and win football games. They got to compete in a division that's no longer just, a cakewalk. You see Houston, they've got, an edge rusher here in this draft. And then you look at, the Jacksonville Jaguars, what they did with Trevor Lawrence and stuff like that. So I'll say Will Levis.
It's an interesting dynamic between what happened with Malik Willis. The general manager who drafted him is no longer there. And I think the idea that they're tied to him because they took him in the third round is just like Mike Vrabel. If Mike Vrabel wants nothing to do with Malik Willis, which kind of looked like that at the end of the season, they're moving on. And the best. So to me, at this point, it's Hendon Hooker and Will Levis, and Will Levis just seems like a Tennessee guy. I don't even know what that means
because he's already on the roster. Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like it, right? Like it's streamlined. It's you have an athletic guy who is a toolsy player. I don't mind it. It's fine.
All right, Will Levis it is.
Jim Drunkenmiller.
Will Levis it is. Speaking of tools, we're back to Houston and Jefferson's visit. What's going on, Scott?
Who did we take?
We took Will Levis for Tennessee. Oh, I'm back.
No, but did we take Tyree Wilson for Houston
Yes, Tyree Wilson for Houston.
So they're going to miss out on the quarterback market unless they take Hendon Hooker, which is super intriguing. You have Davis Mills to get you over the however long it's going to take for Hooker to get recovered. I think Hooker is going to go sooner than people think. I know the Tennessee offense is really bizarre, and for some ways I think it helps their receivers with some of those choice routes and all those things that they do down the field. But to me, Hooker's a really good quarterback. He's a very intriguing prospect. It's just if they're out on quarterback at 2, are you reaching on one at 12? And I don't know that the logic fits. Unless they really like Hendon Hooker. It makes me wonder. But I think at this point it's O-line, D-line. Edge is always, in the equation. You have Laramie Tunsil. I do think you need some O-line help. Is it too soon for a player you might consider as a right tackle? Maybe not. It's Darnell Wright to me is in this is about the range where I think he'll be, where he'll be considered. I think he's a starter from day one kind of thing.
Agree.
I think you could do a lot worse than address your O-line and your D-line with a guy who's sort of the new coach is all about that. So to me, I'm looking at Darnell Wright and thinking that's a nice way to start as we go Tyree Wilson, super physical defensive end, and right tackle, super physical, maybe one of the most physical players in the draft. Darnell Wright, I know it's a little early, but to me that makes sense, and it's a good start for Houston.
Now, Russ, we talked about the fact that they've got the capital or whatever to grab a quarterback, and that's why we went with Tyree early. Do you think they go quarterback, or are you thinking they're going to protect what they've got with a Darnell Wright type right now?
No, I love this fit. I really do. And there's I don't think there's a team in this draft that has more draft capital than the Houston Texans. I genuinely believe the Texans are going to follow what the Jets did last year and end up with 3 first-round picks. And I'm going to be honest, the Ravens have said, hey, we want more picks. They might trade out of the first round completely. It's a big jump, right, from 22 to 33, but they could get a ton of draft capital. And who's to say the Texans don't, I know in this mock draft we're not going to do it, but the Texans could move up into pick 22 or something like that and get Hendon Hooker, Darnell Wright, and Tyree Wilson, and everybody's going to say they won the draft after one night. And I love this fit because you just looked at, you mentioned DeMeco Ryans, a defensive-minded coach. He's going to get a guy that he would probably love to play as a free technique in the middle of his defense. And he's going to get him at right tackle. I think Titus Howard's a bit of a liability there. You have to get protection for either Davis Mills or the next guy. I love the snatch trap technique that Darnell Wright has, heavy hands. I love the fit. I think it's a home run.
Sold. I'm bitter because I really, 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 really wanted him in Detroit at 18.
Yeah.
I think
It's
that guy's
possible.
going to be a
Yeah.
very, very special player. I think,
Yeah.
and what he gives you as a team for leverage with the upcoming contract with Decker. As much as I love Decker, what he's 30 right now, right? You start thinking about that, and here's a guy that can play guard immediately, can kick out to right tackle, and you can bring Panay over, who's shown he's class at left tackle. That's when he got in that fight and beat Aaron Donald's ass. I mean, he's a guy that can go do that, and it gives you all kinds of ability. It gives you backup. It gives you a lot of juice in that line to pick up a guy like that. So I hate to see him go, but there he is, the Houston Texans at 12. We are with the New York Jets at 13, and that is which one of you is the odd one? I'm sorry.
That's me. I'm the odd one.
Thanks, Russ. I got to write this down. All right. At 13, the New York Jets are in the mix. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, the guy that they've met with, I think, the most from the offensive line has been Broderick Jones from Georgia, and I think he fits what they're looking for. You know, Mekhi Becton is, I think his days are numbered there in New York. They need to figure it out on the offensive line. We'll see if they even have this pick if the Aaron Rodgers thing ever happens. But that said, you're getting a highly athletic tackle. He's got the desired foot speed to handle faster pass rushers. You love the long arms, almost 35 inches. I like the way he operates in space for a player that's 6'5", 311. Like, he can really pull. The biggest thing is he's just considered raw. I mean, only 19 starts in his collegiate career. I think his hand speed and timing with his punch could be a little bit faster and more consistent. But overall, I think the tools are there, and you put him in there, and he can be a potential plug-and-play guy for you, and he'll learn as he goes, right? Like, that's the thing. He's going to be a guy that needs the reps, the pro reps, and it's what the tackle position is. You're never going to learn it in practice against the practice squad guys. You're going to learn it by playing against Aaron Donald and the J.J. Watts and the Von Millers and stuff. So I think he makes a ton of sense at 13.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're addressing, up front on either side of the ball, I don't think that's a bad idea. Even if you have, like Chris, you were mentioning the Lions with Decker and Penei Sewell and adding a player like Darnell Wright at 18, and it just takes a tiny little vision to see in 2 years you're set at offensive tackle for a long time. And in the meantime, he can play at right guard for you. You know what I mean? Like, there's versatility there.
Yep.
It's just that's the value in hitting, the offensive line and defensive lines, building out from the ball. It's fine. I mean, it's a good pick, and I don't know what they're going to do with Becton. I don't even know if they know what they're going to do with Becton. They need help. So,
yeah,
it's a good pick. It works just fine.
And we landed on Broderick Jones, right? Is that what I heard?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. Doing a little production while we're talking. Just want to make sure I don't mess this up. Okay, so the New York Jets take Broderick Jones, offensive tackle. We move on then to the even up guy, Bish. You've got the New England Patriots on the clock. Who are you looking at? I know they've shopped their quarterback quite a bit. But rumor has it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic, isn't it? Like, what are they going to get in return for a player like Mac Jones? And would they be in the Lamar market? I don't know. For our purposes here, I think Brian Branch is where New England would go, just because of how that nickel safety, whatever position you want to call that, the extra, defensive back who's really effective close to the ball. Branch is really, really good. I know he didn't test great, but it's one of those things where you don't care. As long as you're not asking him to play like as a deep center field safety, I don't really care what his testing is, because his instincts are so good, and everything else about him, his game is really, really polished. He screams Patriots player to me.
Yeah.
Russ, I think that was a sound agreement with.
Yeah, no, I could make a case for Peter Skoronski, but I completely agree. Brian Branch makes a ton of sense. Just looking at the defense there, Jalen Mills, Adrian Phillips. I feel like Adrian Phillips has been playing since 2004. They need to get somebody else in there at that safety spot. Miles Bryant's a restricted free agent, so I think it's a home run.
Yeah. And I mean, as I'm thinking about it, as you mentioned Lamar, I have this, it seems like it'd be really funny to see Lamar and Belichick in a room together building out the offense. I just think that there's comedic value there waiting to happen.
It is. It screams cognitive dissonance, doesn't it? Like it just doesn't fit.
But Randy Moss fit over there. You know what I mean? Now, he didn't sit in the room working out plays with Belichick every day. That was Brady's job. He was kind of the buffer, but that would be an interesting.
But Belichick is 70-something years old, and the desperation at the end kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he really need one more ring though? Come on.
After he needs one more for Kraft after Putin stole his. All right, let's go on to Green Bay Packers FTP. They are picking at 15. We're getting close here to the halfway point. We're going to start rolling a little bit quicker, but we have Green Bay up on the clock. And Russ, this is yours, man.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more overlooked players in the class. It's Miles Murphy, the edge from Clemson. And I get it, the production dropped this past year. I get it, he kind of runs hot and cold from time to time. His hands aren't always consistent. He's got actually really tiny hands. I got small hands. I say it on every show I'm on. I got White Castle sliders over here, and this guy's got 8.5-inch hands. But, he screams Green Bay. And you look back at, a few years ago, Rashawn Gary. These guys are almost identical as far as measurables go. I mean, Gary was 6'4", 277. Murphy's 6'4", 268. Murphy ran his 40 in 4.51. His shuttle time was 4.28. Gary's shuttle time was 4.29. I mean, you just pinpoint it. He screams Green Bay. Gary's getting healthy. You put these two guys on the edge. I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense, and I think they run to the podium if he's there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Scott?
Miles Murphy? I mean, he is a player I was hoping would come, who would show up at pick 18, and it'd be one of those, kind of picks, because he does some of the things that Tyree Wilson does do as a pass rusher. Yeah. So, right, like, it'd be a great start for the Lions to go corner and edge rusher, and I don't care which way you went about it. Like if you take Murphy at 6 and Witherspoon at 18, cool. But obviously he's off the board. It's a good pick, and it makes sense.
There you go. All right, Miles Murphy sold to the Green Bay Packers, and we move on to the Washington football team.
Red Tails,
the communists of Washington. Who knows who owns this team anymore? Who knows what's going to be left behind? I have a feeling that Schneider's even going to steal the wallpaper off the walls before he goes. What kind of guy he is. Scott, put your mind in Crazyville. What are you looking at there in Washington?
So I think you're looking at needing corner. And at this point, you're looking at maybe Joey Porter Jr. or Deonte Banks. I think you definitely need O-line. And if that's the case, you need a guard and you need a center. Now, I don't know exactly who their tackles are, but Skoronski to me is a player who, if he fails as a tackle, can play at a high level as a guard. And for the reasons of we're running out of high-end offensive tackles with some versatility, I think he's the pick. For need and for what the future holds for them. So to me, it's Skoronski.
Yeah, you won't hear any thing out of me on that one. I think it's a great pick. It's Brandon Sheriff 2.0. So I think it's a phenomenal pick, and that's the direction I would go.
All right, as Lois would say, Peter Skoronski. He is out of there. We'll move on then. Pick number 17. We're over halfway. They are in with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'll tell you, the guy who had me fooled last year, Steelers coach at Senior Bowl, was all over Malik. I mean, he was on him like flies on Dookie. He was shoving Lions coaches out of the way to get close because he was so excited.
I showed my wife that video, and I said, "You see the way he's looking at that quarterback? I would like for you to look at me like that. She
too passed on you. So we moved.
It didn't go well.
She did.
I didn't put that together, but that was pretty funny, Chris. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Honey, you did it. All right. Pittsburgh Steelers. Russ, this is up to you. Please save us from my terrible joke at Scott's expense.
Yeah, no, if Skoronski was here, I'd run to the podium. And the way that they've the way Mike Tomlin's made it looks like he's looking at offensive linemen. I mean, he was essentially playing center at Senior Bowl practices during some of the drills. But I think Anton Harrison makes a lot of sense for them, but I don't know if it's too soon. I don't think so. He screams Pittsburgh Steeler. He's just fierce. He can move. He's got the length. I think he can play either tackle spot. And it seems like they're committed in making sure that Kenny Pickett takes the next step as a quarterback and getting better. And as much as it would be a feel-good story for Joey Porter Jr. to play in Pittsburgh, I mean, dreams aren't always reality, right? So I think Anton Harrison is just he screams Green Bay or Pittsburgh to me, excuse me. So I think that this one it makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
I'm excited about the next pick.
All right, I'm going to grab him while we talk. And Scott, you have number 18. You're still recovering from the wound. I apologize. Go ahead and hit us with. No,
listen. The conversation that we had, I thought was really good because I was, admittedly pretty sold on Carter. And then you started talking and it was like, huh. And you changed my mind. And part of this is that we're informing ourselves. And Chris, I know we talk, and I know that you have reach to where your perspective on what they may do informs a lot of the way I think about what they may do. So, I think it's great that we could have this conversation about Jalen Carter, and I could have a bit of an entrenched position on it, and then within a few minutes change my mind when presented with really good information. So thank you. I mean that. It was, hopefully for everybody else, it's a little bit of like, this is what it looks like when, guys get together, teams get together and start talking about prospects. And when there is this kind of stuff go on, this is the kind of way conversations happen. Like this, it's the way it goes.
And the hard part for them, Scott, I hate to jump in and sorry to interrupt. The hard part for them is they have these conversations over and over a course of weeks. And how hard is it not to suddenly kind of convince yourself of something? I mean, you wind up with a Bay of Pigs situation in some situations, right? You convince yourself this is absolutely the right thing to do. Who would think anything else? This is obvious. You've talked yourself into kind of a corner, and to be able to do this at a high level and not talk yourself into a tough spot as a team over the course of weeks is an incredible skill that I think is undersold for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I think we're now at pick 18, correct?
Yes. Jamie Clark is channeling me. His crush is Adebawore. Bijan is super tempting. We're at 18. The Lions are on the clock. Scott, you have the card in your hand. What does it say?
So it could be Adebawore. It would be totally reasonable for it to be Adebawore. It could be Bijan. I would love for it to be Bijan. The part that I struggle with is that you just gave David Montgomery a little bit of money, right? Mm-hmm. But Bijan is a super talented player, and I can't imagine how great he would do. Great things behind this offensive line. I mean, like great things.
Yeah.
In the end, to me, because there's so much value, I'm looking at Hendon Hooker. He's still available, right?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
I don't think that's a bad way to go.
I have thoughts. I always have an opinion.
What are your thoughts?
No, I want Russ to go. I don't want to poison the well. Go ahead, Russ.
No, like this is the weird thing with us as Lions fans, right? Like we've never had this before. Like no matter what direction they go at 6, 18, all the way down the line, I don't think I could be mad at the pick. Like, I really don't think I could be mad at it. And that's a weird feeling because I feel like this is how the Buffalo Bills felt 2, 3 years ago when they started building around Josh Allen. And then they like would be able to just kind of take whoever they needed to. And that's kind of the case here. Like, you could make a case that you need Hendon Hooker because your backup quarterback situation is trash, and you need something behind Jared Goff, and you need to figure out what's your long-term answer there at quarterback. If you can't find a reasonable contract for Hendon Hooker, then it's one of those situations. And before we did this show, I did a show in Green Bay, and we talked about Hendon Hooker potentially at 15, and it was a weird conversation, and it was like, it's actually a smart thought because you don't know what Jordan Love's going to be. And you are preventing a team like Detroit at 18 and a team like Minnesota at 23 to potentially take a guy who's been rumored to take Hendon Hooker. And you could prevent anybody else from having him, and you can just dangle him there like a carrot, and that's your guy. And Jordan Love could be awesome, or he could be terrible, and you have a backup plan. And that's the case here with Jared Goff. He had a great year this past year. He had a pretty good first year here. But who's to say he doesn't regress? So I'm on board with it. I know that they're connected to him, and I know they loved him at the Senior Bowl. I think, Chris, when I saw you down there, we talked a little bit about it, and just, yeah. I mean, they're in on him. It just is what it is, and I think he makes sense. It's rich, but everything's pointing he's going in the first round, so I like it.
Here's the thing that I think about Hooker, right? And I love Bijan, I love Edebawore, and you guys know I'm a Goff believer. I believe Goff has the skills, but what Hendon Hooker does is he kind of fills two roles. Number one, he's your backup quarterback, and I don't want to say he's no different, but you don't have to change anything from how you play Jared Goff. Your offense is the same with either him or Goff there. So you've drafted a backup that allows you to keep your game plan and run. If something were to happen to Goff in a game, you're not out. You have probably the best case scenario as a backup, potentially in the league at that point, right? You also, you start to play the odds. Goff hasn't been injured in a while. I know you have a line that you think he can stay healthy behind, but man, you worry about it. But number two, yeah, he's 3.5 years younger than Goff, almost 4 years younger than Goff. That's an extra 4 years, again, with the personnel you have. When Goff decides he wants to retire, or if he decides he wants a contract that's just insane, this is 4 more years you have with a guy that fits the mold that you've built in this team. So I think he does kind of fill a number of roles for the team and gives them a lot of flexibility. The Lions are a different team right now than they typically have been in the last decade with a number 18 pick, right? Number 18 pick, there's no luxuries in the past. There's just isn't. And they've made some serious luxury picks. Hooker is a little bit of a luxury pick here, but I think, God, there's so much potential for what he brings in the Lions and really starts to attack that depth question you have at a key position, at the most important position on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to throw Hendon Hooker in here, and people are going to hate us, but I'm okay with it. I think
they already did.
You build for the future. That's what the draft is all about, right? It's not for today. And the Lions, for once, are in a position where they can start thinking about building for the future. And they don't need a guy that can start today and put all the pressure on him turning the team around. I mean, could you imagine being Aiden Hutchinson walking in, how the hopes and dreams of the Detroit Lions fans are resting on your shoulders, and then the first 6 games of the season? I mean, man, I can't imagine.
A lot of pressure.
Okay. Let's get ready to roll. We're up now to number 19, Tampa Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady's out the door. Very potential trade for Hooker there, but we're not trading. Russ, what do you have for Tampa? What's on the menu over here?
Well, I mean, I know they need an offensive tackle. With Tristan Wirfs going to be moving over to the left side, they need help on the right side. The ideal fit would be Darnell Wright. I mean, that's going to be the most commonly mocked player to this spot, but I don't think he's going to be there. And again, we've got all the offensive tackles gone. So I'm going to just go defense here. And we always wonder, where's Kalijah Cansey going to fit? And I think Tampa's a perfect spot. You plug him in as a 3 technique next to Vita Vea, who's going to play as a zero shade, and you get a guy that's going to get one-on-one matchups against a ton of guards. He's going to it's going to be havoc. It's going to be chaos down there. I think it's a great fit. They need help with the interior defensive line. Greg Gaines, they added him, but like Greg Gaines does not move the needle for me. Kalijah Cansey with that athleticism, and I'm terrified of the arms. I get it. The short arms, I'm with you. But the fit just makes too much sense. I think it's a home run pick at 19 to get a player that's got the explosiveness and that type of talent.
Yeah, and the fit next to Vita Vea is pretty intriguing. Like, I mean, he has such upper body twitch. His hand usage, it's so quick that it's over before it's almost started. And that's why I don't really care so much. As a pass rusher, I don't care so much about the short arms. If anything, they help him. Now, anchoring against the run, totally different story. But, as a pass rusher on the interior, he's a nightmare, a total nightmare. Yep. Interior pressure, I think, has become more problematic for quarterbacks than pressure around the edges that they can see and feel. Cansey could be one of those guys that is just a nightmare. It's so difficult to block. You might even have to commit a running back to him, if in pass pro
or H-back or something.
Yeah. That's a good fit. Works.
All right, Kalijah Cansey to Tampa down here, and we move on to number 20, Seattle. And I love the controversy. I love the conversation in the chat. Folks are going all over the place with it, and it's okay. Don't worry. I saw one person, all caps, I will be proven wrong. That's okay. I'm due this year. I haven't been yet, and actually I didn't catch my wrong in last year, so I've got 2 to go. All right, Scott, number 20. You have the Seattle Seahawks. They got themselves a CJ Stroud earlier in the draft. Pete Carroll, maybe he's high on Wrigley's right now. He's feeling it. What are they going to do here at number 20?
I think this is where Jordan Addison comes off the board and is just a perfect fit for an offense. Just pure route runner, technician, athletic enough to get it done, kind of a Tyler Lockett clone. To me, it's a perfect fit for an offense requiring another weapon. Russ, I don't know what you think, but
I love Jordan Addison. I think he's I think he's the best receiver in the draft, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I love the shiftiness. I love the way he sinks his hips and he's able to change directions. Watching him run a whip route down in the red zone, I mean, it's poetry in motion, man. He is so fluid. He is so good. I love this fit. And as we took Stroud earlier, you bring in Addison. You've kind of got, I don't want to say Tyler Lockett 2.0 because he's nowhere near as explosive or as fast vertically, but he's going to win in the short areas of the field. And you have DK Metcalf to take the top off of the defense. So I love the fit.
Yep.
There you go. All right, Jordan Addison sealed the deal, ready to wheel for the Seattle Seahawks. Now we come in, Russ, you've got a tough decision. Miami at 21. They've already penciled in a guy named Forfeited, but I'm not sure. Is that who they're really sticking with?
Forfeited.
That's terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dad, is that you? Could be. What's your mom look like? All right, we'll go to 22. Scott, it's up to you, man.
We're going to stop now.
Scott, you've got the Chargers off at 22. What do you see happening over there in the darker side of LA?
Oh, okay. So needs wide receiver, defensive line, tight end, linebacker, edge, running back, safety, and tackle. So tell me what's happening with Austin Eckler before I make a pick, and you know where this is going to go.
Just take him. It's Bijan all day.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
If there's even any discussion that Eckler's not playing this year, I'm taking Bijan.
And I think Eckler's had that discussion himself. I think it was today or yesterday I saw. I mean, he's pretty clear that nothing's going on there. All right. Bijan it is. Moving on to number 23, the Baltimore Ravens. They've got quarterback Lamar Jackson ready to have another MVP here over there. Russ, where are you going at 23 in Baltimore?
Well, I got to ask the question: Where the hell did the nickname Snoop Huntley come from? Well, who gave him Snoop? He was Tyler Huntley his whole career in college at Utah, fine kid, and now he's Snoop Huntley. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't know. But that said, the Ravens, look, I don't think they're going to go the traditional way of wide receiver. I know Quentin Johnston is staring us in the face, and he'd be a great fit, but I think it's a corner. I think that's what they're going to do. And when Joey Porter Jr. is staring there, I mean, great length. He's really physical. His length his arms are so long, and he's going to be somebody I think it's even more fluid in the NFL. He screams Baltimore Raven, and it's going to terrify his dad on the other side of the field as he's part of the Steelers coaching staff. But I just think that's the way that they go here.
Think about him in trail technique. Like, how do you drop one over the top there? Good luck.
You can't. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Joey Porter Jr. here. The one thing that you are guaranteed to do is chase Lamar out of town, though. they have no targets for the guy, and going Joey Porter is a great move. He's going to be a great player for that team, but that's kind of sticking it to Lamar, and they'll have to figure something out. Yeah,
that's what they're going to do, though.
Maybe Joe Flacco will come back. Yeah. You never know. He's got some minutes left in him. All right, Minnesota Vikings. Scott, you were there. They're up at 24. Will they pick this year? I guess that's the first question. Or will the clock run out? We'll move on.
I think they'll make a pick.
Okay.
I do. Not certain, but I think they will. The pick they make, it's we're getting into territory where it's a little bit on the tough side. Needs are cornerback, D-line, wide receiver, guard, linebacker, and safety. So Quentin Johnston's available, but I'm not sure he's a great fit for Minnesota's offense. I mean, he's a big outside X receiver, but I don't think he's fast enough to require like safety help over the top. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys saw his 3-cone time today was like DK Metcalf bad. So we're looking at a DK Metcalf type player, just a slower version of that. And I just don't know that that's a fit for what what Minnesota, what the Vikings do on offense. Having said that, I don't know. Is this a Brian Brisset range territory? Is this a player that could be, available there? Is this Deonte Banks territory? And to me, that's maybe more where it is than anything. And that's what I would be doing. Looking at their needs and how old they are in some areas. Deonte Banks would be a nice fit.
Yeah, you won't hear me complain. That's where I thought you were going to go. That's the direction I would go if I'm them. Brian Flores, he needs a press man corner. Another option would be potentially obviously we can't do it, but trade back. And I do know just by standing next to the guy and listening to him talk about him, he loves Derek Hall. So it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being a Minnesota Viking somewhere down the road in this draft, but maybe not at pick 23. So I'm fine with Deonte Banks.
Deonte Banks locked in. I see that very much so. Jacksonville shows up at 25. We're getting in that zone where Jacksonville is not used to picking for sure. This is very much out of the ordinary, franchise wide. Russ, you're there. You got Shad Khan stinking the room up. What are you doing for your pick at 25?
Man, I struggle with this one because there's so much talent on the board. I mean, Brian Brzee staring me in the face. It's a Clemson guy. We've seen him do it over the last couple of years, just plucking guys out of Clemson. I like the opportunity to draft a tight end. I know they have Evan Ingram, but he's not a long-term fit there. And Michael Mayer is the most consistent tight end in the draft, and he's just staring me in the face. And I think you continue to surround weapons there, and I think with him sitting there, I think that's the guy. I know that they've done a lot of work on Will McDonald. I know that that's a fact, and they've researched him quite a bit, and it could be the pick just to kind of pair up with Trayvon Walker, kind of opposite players from each other. So I like that pairing, but I'm going to say Michael Mayer. I think he's a perfect fit for them. Consistent underneath with stick routes and the things that he can do. He's not super fast, but he somehow creates separation consistently, and I don't understand where it comes from. He's a big frame tight end, and he's going to be somebody like Kyle Rudolph or Jason Witten. He's going to play for 10, 11 years. He's going to be nothing but consistent.
Yes. Okay. Tight end, first tight end of the draft, Bish. You think that's where we're going, or where Jacksonville's going?
Yeah, it's fine. Yep. It's good. I mean, you could go Brisset. You could take a corner. You could. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but I think that they need help there. He can help as a blocker too. So it's not like he's not a. Everybody says they already got Evan Ingram. No, he's a different player than Ingram. So
yeah,
he helps the offense in a variety of ways.
All right.
Yeah, that offense would be stacked. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, Chris, but I mean Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley coming there. You got Evan Ingram. You throw in Michael Mayer. I mean Zay Jones. That's a good recipe for Trevor Lawrence.
All right, we're going to move on to the New York Fumble Giants. They've lost Kenny Golladay, obviously one of the biggest hits to that team. Will they recover? Who knows? It's doubtful. Scott, what do you do when you lose such a key player like Kenny Golladay?
It's crazy to say this, but I think you're ignoring the receiver position potentially again, because you need help on the offensive interior. The Minnesota interior offensive lineman, the Minnesota center, I think is a perfect fit here. And it's about the range where they start coming off the interior offensive line players. I think he can play at a high level right now. The question is do they fall in love with a player like some of the receivers, like Zay Flowers is one of them. Yeah. Now the problem is they have a bunch of small receivers already. So if you're not looking at Quentin Johnston because maybe you don't like the route running and some of the athletic ups, the profile, I think you're looking at the Minnesota center and being pretty comfortable with it.
All right. You thinking John Michael Schmitz is on the board here, Russ?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's the direction I would go if it's not going to be Quentin Johnston. And, as we talk about the 3-cone drill and stuff like that, it kind of starts making me, and he can't really separate. He struggles against physical defenders, starts getting me kind of thinking back to Kenny Golladay in a sense. And it's like, do they potentially want to take that risk again? So, and I agree with Zay Flowers that you got enough of those slot type of receivers. So I would take John Michael Schmitz if I was them. That's a perfect fit. It's a plug and play center, and that's what they need.
Yeah. All right. We're in. Book it. We're up to pick number 27 now. As we roll through this, I'm going to run through the picks really quick just so everybody's up to speed. We have the scroll in the bottom if you haven't seen it, but Carolina goes with Bryce Young, Houston, Tyree Wilson, Arizona, Will Anderson Jr., Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson, Seattle, C.J. Stroud. The Detroit Lions land with cornerback Devin Witherspoon. Christian Gonzalez goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. Atlanta, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Chicago with Paris Johnson. Philadelphia with Jalen Carter. Tennessee, Will Levis. Houston, Darnell Wright. The Jets take Broderick Jones. The New England Patriots with Brian Branch. Green Bay Packers go with the defensive end Miles Murphy. Washington takes Peter Skoronski. Pittsburgh, Anton Harrison. Hendon Hooker to the Detroit Lions at 18. Kalijah Kancey to Tampa. Jordan Addison to Seattle. Mr. Four-Fighted to Miami. Bijan Robinson to the Chargers. Joey Porter Jr. to Baltimore. Deontay Banks to Minnesota. Michael Mayer to Jacksonville. And John Michael Schmitz, sounds like an actor, goes to the New York Giants. We're on to number 27. Russ, you are in place of, I apologize for putting you in these shoes, but you are Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, I struggle with this one because I could see them going in a variety of ways. I mean, Dalton Kincaid is there. I think that they could look at upgrading, with Dalton Schultz gone. I could see, potentially Zay Flowers as well. But I'm going to go with Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. I think he can play a variety of roles for them. I think he could even play as a will at time. And their starting will right now projected is Damon Clark out of LSU. And I loved him coming out of LSU, but he had that spinal surgery. And I mean, that's not a sure thing. So, I mean, that's a pretty big injury. I think you get Nolan Smith here. You're getting a vicious, violent player. My colleague, Anthony Proashka at Cover One, describes him as a raptor. So, he's one of those guys that's just violent, man. And I like him. I think he, that 4.39 40, the 41.5-inch vertical, he's explosive. And I think you pair him with Micah Parsons, you can get those guys in space. You can rush the passer. I think it's a great fit. And, it's not necessarily the top need, but I think it's somebody that it kind of fits.
There you go. Nolan Smith, is that your guy, Scott?
Yeah, it works just fine.
I hate that for the Lions having to play them this year. That's definitely why you need your Hendon Hooker backup ready to go.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, that is an ugly pass rush there in Dallas. All right, we move on. 28 Buffalo. Scott, you have the Buffalo Bills in the 28th position. Tell me why they're putting Zay Flowers out there. Or not. Tell me what you got for the Buffalo Bills.
Well, they definitely need help at receiver, and if we're saying Zay Flowers is available, I think pencil it in. They need explosiveness out of that position. I think there's some frustration from Stephon Diggs about just some of the ways the offense has gone, but in the end, Josh Allen needs more weapons, and Zay Flowers is an explosive dude who can play. It's a nice fit.
Did I steal your thunder too, Russ? I didn't mean to do that.
No, you're good. I think it's a great fit. They need a guy in the slot. I think Zay Flowers kind of plugs and plays there, and I think it's a great spot for Josh Allen and that offense to keep moving forward.
All right, 4 picks left in the draft. Russ, we're going to go with you. We have Zay Flowers going to the Buffalo Bills. Cincinnati is up. Obviously, deep need for quarterback there. What do you think the Bengals are doing, Russ?
Man, again, another tough one. I mean, there's a bunch of different players that I think kind of fit what they're looking for. But he's there, and I got to take him. It's Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. I know they brought in Irv Smith, but it's a 1-year deal. He's coming off an injury. You never know what you're going to get there. And they got a lot of luck with Hunter Henry this past year. But with Dalton Kincaid there, you're getting a guy, he's also coming off an injury, but I think the upside's a lot higher than Irv Smith. And I think there's there's nobody more sure-handed than Dalton Kincaid in this draft as a pass catcher. 1 career drop, 70 receptions this past year. I think the ceiling's high for him. I think he's going to continue to get better in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow.
Mr. Bischoff, what do you have for us? Oh yeah, he's still there.
No, I'm here. It's so I'm going back and forth between Kincaid and Darnell Washington. So I think we're targeting the position. They're totally different players.
Yeah.
If Cincinnati wanted to dial up more power runs, I would say maybe Washington would fit better for what they're doing. But the idea that they want another weapon and a pass catching weapon who's a really, really good one tells me that Kincaid is likely the better option. So I'm going to agree that Kincaid is the pick, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
All right. Dalton Kincaid lands in Cincinnati. Everybody's happy. And we move on to the New Orleans Saints at number 30. Bish, you've got 2 picks to make, 2 more heads to get into before this is all over. I know the pressure's really getting heavy here. You're sitting in New Orleans.
It's terrible.
Who are you going to pick, and what are you going to do with it?
Oh, so Brisset is still available, correct?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Jahmyr Gibbs is a player who I think they'd have to be looking at this point.
Yeah.
Although running backs don't go in round 1. I get it. Osiris Torrance, I think, would fit here just fine. as a player. And then there's some edge players I think that could fit. Derek Hall might fit here. BJ Ojolari might be another one who fits. I would say right now I'd be leaning to Torrance, the guard from Florida, a plug and play, bolster the offensive line type. That's just where I am with it right now. I could make an argument for Gibbs too, but I think it's just unrealistic to think that we're going to have two running backs in round one this year. So I'm going to go with the guard.
Russ, what do you think? Osiris Torrance is out there. He's doing his Gator chomp. How's he going to do in New Orleans?
Look, I'm fine with the pick. I think it makes quite a bit of sense because I do think it's a need to get some interior offensive line help. I will say I think if Quentin Johnston was there, though, and he is in this situation, I think he'd be very intriguing. And I know that, late last year, that kid, Shaheed, started just coming out of nowhere and started making plays, but that was with a completely different quarterback. I don't know if he can necessarily do those types of, those deep routes with Derek Carr. But you bring in Quentin Johnston, what he can do after the catch. You've got Chris Olave over the middle of the field. You've got Michael Thomas. And Michael Thomas isn't a sure thing. And, I mean, you're bringing in Derek Carr. We've seen what he is without weapons. You bring him another pass catcher. And Johnston's limited, I think, as an athlete. But he is pretty explosive after the catch. And I think there's some intrigue there. I think it would be an ideal fit. Just speaking, out loud, but I would be fine with Torrance if that was the case.
Well, it's significantly more value in drafting a receiver than there is in taking a guard.
And don't you think
there just is? I mean, wide receivers are breaking the bank with with their contracts that they're signing. So I just think from that standpoint, getting one on a 4-year rookie deal with a 5th-year option is probably a much smarter play than drafting a guard. I wish I would have thought about it and said it, but I didn't. So,
and Quentin Johnson,
I'm gonna
he's kind of a real value at 30? I feel like he's fallen down the board to be available at that point.
Just the contract, it makes him value.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it makes more sense than what I said.
Okay. There it is. We'll lock it in. Quentin Johnson, wide receiver to the New Orleans Saints. Russell Brown sitting in the draft room there making the choices. He's back up now on top. He's taken the role in Philadelphia. Who do you have 31 overall, Russ?
Little bum that Quentin Johnston's gone, right? But I'm going to go just off of things that I've kind of seen and kind of read up on and got a couple texts on, and that's Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. And they've done a lot of research on him. And when you look at this team, they almost lost their entire secondary just in this offseason alone. There's a good chance it's going to all fall apart next year. So I think they're going to start planning for the future. It's not necessarily what their MO is in this organization in the first round, but I think you get a guy like this, you can add some weight to him. He's got tremendous length. I like, his fluidity as well. I think he's fairly physical from time to time at the catch point. I like the fit there. And I know that they've done the research, and I don't think it's costing you too much to take a guy at 30 to play that position. We talk about a 5th-year option with Johnston. You do the same thing here at corner, and it takes a little bit of time to figure out the corner spot. So Forbes to be able to sit there behind Slay and the guys that are there, I think it's a home run.
What do you got for me there?
He's a ball
Scott?
hawk. He's a ball hawk. Lots of pick sixes. He is a spindle. Like, he is a thin, wiry dude. And even if you threw 15 pounds on him, he's still an outlier. So it's like, he does need to get into he would need to get into the Eagles nutrition facility and put on some pounds. But just from a ball hawk perspective, it's fine.
He's got a mentor, Jalen Carter, to help put some on pretty quick. So maybe that'll help him out.
Yeah. It's true.
Terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. All right. Cornerback Emmanuel Forbes goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. That leads us number 32. Scott, who do you got here? This is interesting because there's a number of players on the board. You have a Super Bowl winner, who's really still got a lot of really quality picks available to help even get better.
So they lost Frank Clark, correct?
Yes.
Do I have that right? Lucas
Yeah,
Van Ness it's Lucas Van Ness here. I mean, just from a value
this would be
All right.
right. Like, I mean, I just think he fits perfectly for you need a power pass rusher. They've seen what a player like Chris Jones can do in getting into the pocket and disrupting things. Lucas Van Ness has a long ways to go to be a high level down to down, defensive player. But we're talking with pick 31 or 32, whatever you want to call it, player who probably will be long gone before this, and a player who can grow into something that might help them down the road.
All right, Russ, any arguments? You want to punch Scott in the nose or anything?
Nope, no arguments for me. I think it's a fantastic pick. I think you pair him up with George Karlaftis. I love it.
All right, there we go. Full first round mocked out. Pretty interesting. And I mean, if we were to do this again, I have a feeling we'd roll out different. But I mean, we're looking at guys like Osiris Torrance, who's not even gone. Who else we have? Jalen Hyatt out there, who's a value guy. Breesy, right? He's out there still. Tons of quality players out there ready to roll. Very, very interesting. Now the Lions don't pick again until what is it? 40, 50?
Or 48, I think.
48?
Yes, 48.
48.
And then
okay.
55.
And then 55. That's it. Sorry. Very, very interesting to see how this is going to play out. And I think that's going to be it's going to be something. Don't take this as a thought exercise. As with all mock drafts, nobody's trying to predict the future here, but what we're doing is walking through the exercise, the players, how they fit, the teams, what they need, some of the thinking. I wouldn't put my money on that this is not at all how the draft is going to play out, just particularly with trades alone, right? But it's a definite opportunity to kind of do a no trade look at what the teams need, look at the players and their talents, and when you're locked in and you have to go there, this is the potential for where you would go with how you're building out your team. I think as we start to move.
These are the things the players do well. This is how they fit this team, kind of thing. We're still enough ways out that it's early to be doing these because we don't have enough information. So, take it for what it is.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we'll go through it really quick. We're going to say Carolina with Bryce Young, Houston, Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson Jr. goes to Arizona, Anthony Richardson to Indianapolis, C.J. Stroud to Seattle, Devin Witherspoon to Detroit, Christian Gonzalez to Las Vegas, Atlanta picks up Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chicago picks up Paris Johnson, Philadelphia, Jalen Carter, he fell, Will Levis to Tennessee, Darnell Wright, to Houston, Broderick Jones to the New York Jets. New England Patriots get Brian Branch. Green Bay picks up Miles Murphy. Washington picks up Peter Skoronski. At 17, Pittsburgh grabs Anton Harrison. The Detroit Lions set themselves up with Hendon Hooker, for better or for worse. Tampa, they pick up Kalijah Kancey. Seattle Seahawks with Jordan Addison. Miami Dolphins, of course, their forfeited pick for beating dirty, rotten cheaters. The LA Chargers pick up Bijan Robinson. The Baltimore Ravens take Joey Porter Jr. Deontay Banks goes to Minnesota. Jacksonville picks up Michael Mayer. New York Giants, John Michael Schmitz. Nolan Smith to Dallas. Zay Flowers to Buffalo. I think they're going to love that pick. Dalton Kincaid to Cincinnati. New Orleans takes Quentin Johnson. Emmanuel Forbes to Philadelphia, and Kansas City looks in on Lucas Van Ness. Whoa, what a good one. This is fun. This is exciting. Let's think about this. That's got it for the draft. Anything you guys want to weigh in on as we call it a wrap?
No. It was fun. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Russell Brown, Lions Wire, Scott Bischoff, Detroit Lions Podcast, both all kinds of other places doing great work. I want to thank you both for joining. It was awesome to have you on the show. You guys are absolutely fantastic. We're going to have a lot more coming up on drafts, mock drafts, and other information as we go forward. Look for the videos coming out and the other work we're doing. Don't forget us about patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Also, when you do at least $5 a month there, you get access to the Slack chat, which is the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet with all the insider dust and so on. Also follow us on Twitter at DET Lions Podcast, DET Lions Podcast, at Russ NFL Draft, as you see, and at Bischoff_Scott. I guess I'll follow, and we'll be hanging out pants free. It's a place to do it. Twitter, they don't block anything like that. Give us a call. If you use Skype, it's Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, or call us on the Lions line at 248-782-8384. It's 248-RUB-UFUG. And be sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast so we can blast it into your ears automatically. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time with the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems. Because we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection.